So we are back with the hot water heater. We never really did anything with it. We just had a real slight leak and it was going right into the pan and right down the drain. So we weren't that concerned about it. But this morning, and we've been turning our water on and off just to make sure that if anything does happen, it's not going to cause a whole lot of damage. But yeah, this morning it was starting to make weird noises, and so we've shut off the water, shut off the power, and we got to get this taken care of within the next couple of days. It looks like we're going to take cold showers until it gets done. I don't know if you can see how much it's leaking, but the leak has definitely increased even with the water off, so there's no pressure coming through. But the home warranty will do nothing. They did say that they would cash out for us, like they would just pay us to do it, or to take care of it ourselves, but all the requirements they had with it, you still had to pay someone else to do it. They wouldn't let you do it. And by the time it was done, it's just still cheaper for us to just do it ourselves. So home warranty was pretty much worthless. But hopefully today or tomorrow, this will get done. That's why you're supposed to drain your water heater periodically, because that mineral builds up at the bottom and just kind of gets stirred up. Some of it comes through and you're showering in it, but even the stuff that stays there, it lessens the life of your water heater. So you're supposed to drain that periodically. We were really kind of hoping, and one of the reasons that we waited on this is we've been researching the tankless water heaters and really wanted to do one, but the problem is where it's situated right in the middle of our house on the lower level. There's really no way to vent it if we switch it over to gas. The electric ones, I don't trust them to be powerful enough to be able to heat everything that we needed to heat, be able to shower and still do laundry and wash dishes all at the same time. So it looks like we're going to go back to a tank, but anyway, we just got to take care of it quick. All right, now that it's drained, the first thing that I did is I unhooked this power. I did check to make sure that the line wasn't active. I disconnected it at the breaker, but I just wanted to make sure I had the right breaker before I did it. But it was just wired into here. It just made the disconnections, and that was it. I then went ahead and took out both of my water in and out. I did the out first just to make sure that any water that's still draining, it just gives it some, it's not going to hold the water back if you have that open. I just wanted to make sure that was drained, and then I went ahead and took the water in and took that apart as well. So there's really nothing holding it right now. I'm probably going to take off the pressure release valve and the overflow, just to make it easier to move. But it looks like we can get to it from the back, so I think I'm going to try it that way. There we go. We were able to get it out once Darcy got home, and they're actually fairly light once the water's drained out of them. Pretty easy to move. We just needed to tip it to get past that angled ceiling. But I wanted to show you a couple things before we install the new one. Just, it's easier to see it once everything is out. How bad do you think our neighbors hate us? Okay, this is the cold line coming in. That's why it's got the shut-off valve. The other one, this is where it goes from the hot water tank out into your house. So this one is the one we want to connect to hot. I am going to remove these just because I don't like these pipes. They're kind of a pain to deal with. And so I picked up some new ones. And here's the electrical, and you'll see where that goes. But down here, this is where we have our drain. This is what kept us from having to fix this immediately. So this is the pan that the hot water heater sits in, and you'll notice it's got this hole and then this pipe, and with the hot water heater, that pipe was just connected with PVC and went right down into there. So anything that was leaking out, it wasn't going to go over that pan, it was going to empty right into that drain. This is the top of the new water heater. You notice we got the wiring right here. Normally you're going to have a black wire and a white wire coming in. Because it's a 220 line, it really doesn't matter which one you connect to which, just because that's the way it works. And of course your ground here on the green screw. We've got our hot water coming out of the water heater, and all of them are labeled this way where it's red, so it's easy to recognize your connections. And of course the water coming in is coming in cold, and so they're pretty easily marked. So they're very easy to install, very self-explanatory, and the instructions actually are pretty clear. So it's very easy to do. That's the pressure release valve. The one on the old one was actually up here on top. It really doesn't matter where it is. We just want this to pipe into that same drain that I showed you before that kept us from having to replace it so quickly. There are times where you have to put these nipples in yourself, and if that's the case, you just make sure that on the other side of the nipple, just make sure that it's taped really well with a plumber's tape, and then just screw them in. Here and here, we won't really need the plumber's tape because we've got the rubber washer that goes in those the new connections that I just purchased. Now, both the water coming into the hot water heater and the water coming out already have the threads on it, so our connectors will just connect straight to this. If not, and many times you'll just have the 3/4 inch pipe that's coming out. The kit actually has the compression nuts that you can put on there, so you're not having to sweat anything on. Whoever did this one, just sweat these right onto the pipe, and you can do that. Just make sure if you're sweating anything, your water heater's not hooked up yet, because the heat will go in and it can mess with some of the plumbing that's already in the hot water heater. Now, if you're ever wondering which one is your cold water and which one's your hot, your water coming in will always have a shutoff valve. So that's the one you want to just connect down to the blue. And then of course we've got the hot water coming out of the red and then going into the house. The last time I purchased these, last time I did a hot water heater, I actually had to go to a plumbing store to get this. Home Depot and Lowe's for some reason didn't carry it at the time, but it was just right on the shelf this time. All right, while I'm getting ready to do the electrical, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the water on. We cannot turn on the power until after this is completely full and you've got hot water coming out of one of your taps. If you turn it on before that, you'll burn it out. So I always just make sure I turn it on, let it run until you get water coming out, and then I'll worry about this. But I'll start taking things apart, but I'm not gonna connect it until I know it's hooked up. All right, now I do have to show you where I made a mistake. I hand tightened all of these and then went around with channel locks and tightened them, but apparently I forgot this one. So as soon as I turned the water on, water started pouring out. So I just had to hurry and shut it off and then tighten that one down. But that's why we've got water all over the place here. I don't know if you can hear the hissing, but I've got my hot water on. The reason for that is I want air coming through as it's filling up the hot water tank. It's also pushing all the air through the line. And so until I get water that starts coming out here, it's not gonna, anyway, it's okay there. So now this hot water heater is now full. You just wanna go back through and just check, make sure you don't have any leaks anywhere. Two places you also wanna check is here, just make sure you don't have water coming out of here. If so, then you gotta make some adjustments on the pressure release valve. And then also make sure on your drain, you don't have any water leaking here, because sometimes that seal is already broken before, or it just hasn't been tightened down enough. But you just want to check that you don't have leaks anywhere. Now Darcy's going around right now and she's turning on all the hot water valves that we have in the house just to push air out of the lines. And you just need to do that with each of them until water starts flowing without the air coming out at the same time. All right, we're just gonna run our wires into here. Normally you will have a piece that goes in here, and you don't want it just sitting on the bare metal. You want something that it's going in. I assumed it would come with it. It did not. But I do have, this is the piece from the old one, and so I just pulled it off and I'm reusing it. So this is the wire that's coming out of the wall. I've just run it in here. I haven't tightened this down yet, and I won't until I make all the connections. But these are the two wires coming out of the wall. These two are the ones that are coming from the water heater. And I want to kind of push them down a little bit before I make the connections. But we're just going to go black to black and red to red. Normally you're going to have a black wire coming in and a white wire. And just rule of thumb is just go black to black. It really doesn't matter with this, just because it's a 220 line. But because I've got the wire that I do, I'm just going to run black to black, red to red. I should have showed you this before, but I did connect the ground wire to the ground wire screw there. And then I just made the connections here and used a wiring nut. Don't use electrical tape for this. You want to make sure that you have something that's going to be sturdy, especially when you're dealing with water. Just connected the plates back in. It's time to turn on the power, and to be honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know if you saw the previous post, but I am not an electrician. I am not a plumber. These are all kind of basic things, but just make sure if you're uncomfortable with anything on this at all, please find someone that knows what they're doing and at least have them work it through with you. Even if you don't hire someone, just make sure that you're not putting yourself in danger or at risk. All right, here goes nothing. If you hear screams, Darcy's standing over by the water heater, so no screams, that's a good sign. The only thing we haven't done yet, I really need to run piping from here down into the drain, just so that if there is a pressure issue, this will release the pressure. You just don't want it going straight down, you want it running into the drain. I'm going to try to take care of the pressure release valve, the line coming through. And normally when you're replacing pipe, you want to get new pipe, but where this water's going to be going through this unless there's a problem, and it's going to go directly into the drain anyway. So I'm not really concerned about using new pipe. So I'm going to use some of the fittings from the old one and just kind of finagle it to make it work. To cut pipe, you need a pipe cutter. This one is a little bit larger, and sometimes these aren't as useful. Where we're going to be cutting a pipe that is already out of the wall, it's not a big deal. But a lot of times when you're cutting copper pipe, you got to go for smaller ones. I actually have one smaller than this, but if you've ever seen my garage, you know why I can't find it. But sometimes the smaller the better, just because a lot of times you're in really tight spaces when you're trying to cut. So to cut this, I'm just going to stick this on and tighten it down, and once it gets tight, I'm just going to start rotating it. And once it rotates, then we tighten a little bit and then rotate it some more. Tighten it again, rotate it, tighten it again, and just keep doing that until the piece comes off. And then we'll just want to make sure that we clean out the little burrs, and we're going to clean this off before we connect it to anything. Before we sweat the pipe, we've got to get this all cleaned up. And so you can get an abrasive roll. Sometimes it just looks like this sandpaper that's in a roll, or sometimes it's like a metal mesh. But we're just going to use it, rip a little piece off, and we're just going to clean it. We'll also clean the inside of the fitting that's going to go over this. But you'll notice it's just going to take off the dirt, and you just want to make sure that it's all cleaned off so that it solders fine. All right, the next thing we're going to do is use some of this flux. We're going to take the flux and we're just going to put some around and on the inside of the joint, or on the inside of the attachment. I'm going to take my MAP gas and some solder. It's going to heat up the joint, get it good and hot. You'll notice I've got the solder bent up at a 90 degrees so that I can reach around it. Just want to wait till it starts melting, and it'll draw all the way through the joint. So you heat one side and let it dry. This is what that connection is going to look like. It's just going to head right down into the drain, and I just bent the pipe just so it would fit. But this is why we needed to solder on that last part. This is not connected yet because I need to put some tape on this first, but just because I needed something to attach it to, and this is the threaded line that it'll attach to. There's the final product. The only thing that we need to add, and I probably won't show this, but usually code requires you to anchor it to the wall, and so you can get some straps that you just drill them into a stud. But that's all we have left. Usually that's code. It wasn't on the one that we took out, but we will probably attach it here just because, I don't know, we have too many little kids running around here when the grandkids come visit, so just to be safe.